Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Forever Sports. Big weekend of international rugby, and as a result, we've got a world rankings preview for you with the Boks at jeopardy in terms of losing the number one spot. Should they not beat the Wallabies this weekend? If we win, then we're good. All good. Don't have to stress about any other results. However, if we draw or lose, that number one spot could very much pass on to the likes of the All Blacks or an Ireland, depending on what kind of the margin of victory is and the likes. Before we get into it, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Very big year for world rankings, given the fact that the Rugby World Cup draw will take place in December for 2027, all based on what the final rankings are, based on what 1st December or whatever the last international game of the calendar year is. After that, the draw will take place in December, and that will then be it. So very, very interesting to sort of see how these sort of rankings kind of fluctuate in terms of trying to get that best possible draw. It is a much better system than I think what we had a few years ago, where the draw was done a lot earlier. And all of a sudden, we, for example, had a Scotland, Ireland, and South Africa in the same pool, despite the fact that three of them were all in the top five. Sort of group of death kind of situation. We still might have a situation like that because obviously these rankings can still change quite a lot before the World Cup. There is still almost sort of 2 more years of international rugby, but at least it'll be a much better reflection than it was even, for example, a year ago, where the Wallabies would have been quite far down. I expect them to be much further up and kind of where they should be by the end of the year. But let's get into it, shall we? And look at some of the permutations for this weekend. Right, so as mentioned, South Africa's number one spot is in threat if they do not beat Australia tomorrow evening. If they draw, it opens the door for New Zealand to potentially come in and take that number one spot if they beat Argentina. That'll be the first time New Zealand will be ranked number one in the world since 2021, which is a long time for a side that basically, I think, was setting records for how long they were at the top of the pile there. However, if the Boks were to lose to the Wallabies, then New Zealand will only have to draw or win. So just a draw will be enough for them to go to number one. Very interestingly, is that Ireland, despite being in third, could actually finish the weekend in number one. This is if South Africa and New Zealand both lose by more than 15 points. Pretty unlikely, but there is always that opportunity, and it would be bizarre, wouldn't it? All of a sudden, we go into next week and Ireland are back to number one. But we'd have to, as I said, a lot would have to come back to that. If one of them lose, for example, so if we lose, for example, and All Blacks win, All Blacks go to number one, Ireland will go to number two, we'll actually go to number three. So this is the thing. We actually had a risk of dropping down to third if we lose to the Wallabies, given the fact that we're at home, that they're at where they're ranked, for example. So you can't really sort of stuff up these kind of games from a world rankings perspective. The good news is we are playing the likes of New Zealand, Ireland, France, which means that we can gain those places back if we do lose it. In terms of South Africa, we will retain the top spot if we beat Australia, no matter what, even though we can't improve our rating, for example. And that is because New Zealand can only gain a maximum of 0.5 rating points if they beat Argentina, even if they beat them by 15 points, for example. They can only get 0.5 points, and they trail by more than that to South Africa. So, as long as we win, for example, doesn't matter what our margin is, we will retain that top spot, because obviously we won't lose any points in the world rankings sort of system. Argentina will oust Australia for 6th place, which will be enough for a band one place come the Rugby World Cup 2027 draw in December. You see why it starts to become very, very important. You want to be in those different sort of categories, those different sort of ratings, so that top 6, vital. If Australia are beaten and they avoid defeat against New Zealand, a draw for Australia away to the world champions would have the same impact if Los Pumas are victorious over New Zealand for the first time on home soil. And the scenario can also happen if Australia end their 14-year barren spell on South African soil, 50 years they won it at Ellis Park, providing that the Wallabies win margin is less than 15 points and Argentina is more than 15 points. And then Argentina cannot fall lower than 7th this weekend, even with a heavy loss to New Zealand, although only just, as this would leave them, only 0.04 points above Scotland in 8th. Big opportunity, I think, for Argentina, to be honest. I mean, if they go and beat the All Blacks at home, which is doable. I think it's doable. You've got an Argentinian side missing a few players, and for me, that's probably the reason why they won't. I don't think it's necessarily the reason that they're not good enough. But they've beaten the All Blacks in New Zealand a couple of times in the last few years, and they haven't been able to do it at home, and they they were basically saying the sort of theme of this week is they're desperate to do it at home, to do it in front of a home crowd and to have their support and experience beating the All Blacks because they haven't really done it recently they did it, I think, in Argentina. So it's been a long sort of time coming, but it's an interesting thing. I mean, you look at the world rankings at the moment, it goes Box, New Zealand, Ireland, France, England, Australia, Argentina, Scotland. Now, I think Argentina are a better side than Australia, so I'll be interested to see what happens when those two teams play against each other. I do think at the moment the world rankings are pretty accurate, to be honest. You got Wales outside the top 10, Fiji ranked better than Italy, which I think if they played tomorrow, that would be much in between them. I think Fiji's a better side. We are seeing Fiji become a proper tier 1 nation, which is really, really good to see. But the main thing is you want to be in those different, what they're calling bands. And those basically, it's sort of from a ranking system, you kind of have seeds, basically, and seedings. So you want to be in that band 1, where you obviously get more favorable seedings than if you're in band 2 or band 3, etc., etc. So that's why these world rankings are quite important this year. What are your predictions? What do we see the world rankings as next week? I don't see us losing, so I think that South Africa will remain at the top. Be very cool to see Argentina do a job over New Zealand. They would actually drop down to 3rd, and that would make everything more exciting coming the New Zealand series in less than a month's time. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.